to tell you something that you don't want to hear. I'm going to tell you something no one wants to hear. We are living in revolutionary times. Revolutionary times. The radical right in America wants to take us back 100 years. Here's what you need to understand. They are winning. Let me repeat that over the train, over the conversations in the back, over everything. The radical right is winning. They are winning because we believe that we can reason with them. We believe in the idea of consensus government. We believe that we can sit down and hash out a middle ground, and I am telling you from my experience, we are wrong. We are wrong. And the price we're going to pay is huge. Today, I actually intended to give a different speech. I had a whole different speech. And then I listened to Rick Scott's, whatever you call that thing. But here's what really got me going. This revved my motor, and I rewrote my talk. I heard the Democratic response. I wanted to throw something at the television. We want to work with the governor. We do. Do you want to work with the governor? I'll tell you what. I do want to work with the governor on one thing. I want to help him pack every damn thing he owns and get it out of it. Now, here's the tough part of this, folks. I was raised in the radical right. I know what they believe, and I know what they're planning to do. They've done it in Florida, and they're doing it right now in legislators across the country. 30 bright red legislatures. 30. Think about that. 30 out of 50. 3/5 of the country is ruled, I say, by folks in the same thinking as Rick Scott. And we sit here as Democrats or as non-radicals and say, oh, let's all work together. Let's all work together. How? How? I listen to people say, I'm going to work across the aisle. And you know what I say? With whom? With whom are you working? Give me a list. Give me a list. Let's think about this nationally. The Democrats in Congress, in the House, are down about 18 votes. So just to be on the safe side, because we've got some Democrats who always vote with the Republicans, you need to move 20 to 25 votes. To work together across the aisle requires 25 Republicans. Take out your papers right now, folks, and start making a list. I'll be waiting now. Who would you work with? Would you work with John Boehner? Would you work with Eric Cantor? Oh, go down the leadership. Hit one you'd work with and put up your hand. This is the problem. We think we're going to have consensus government. That is not what the radical right is about. They don't believe in it. They never believed in it. They haven't believed in the concept of one man or woman and one vote since before the Civil War. Think about it. We're all just horrified. Aren't we horrified? They're taking away your right to vote. If you are brown or black,
the new Jim Crow laws!
They are new Jim Crow laws, honey. And they're putting the gay population right in there too. Why? Why? Because the radical right does not believe that it's good for them to have all Americans vote. Let me give you an example today. New polling came out today. Now get this one. 68% of Americans think that the Republican Party is on the wrong issues. 68% of Americans do not agree with the Republican Party. So don't clap yet. In the same polling, over 50% of Americans think that the Republicans should control the Senate.
What?
Yes, what? What? What is the matter with us? What is the matter with Americans? We're losing because people aren't paying attention. People say to me, I've been all over the country in the last year talking about my book. And you know what people say to me? Oh, those radical rights, they're crazy. They're insane. They're lunatics. We call Rick Scott Voldemort. He does look like him. We are missing the point. They are working a plan, people. They are working a plan. They know exactly what they're doing. If you think David and Charles Koch are insane, I have a bridge to sell you. You think they don't know what their policies mean? Do you think these aren't people who have ideas? If you think that, please, you are not helping the cause. You are not helping the cause. You know, people say to me, your father was nuts. No. My father was 32 years in the leadership of the John Birch Society. And I'll guarantee you this. If my father walked on the stage today in his gorgeous camel cashmere sport coat and his perfectly ironed white shirt and his gorgeous silver hair and his beautiful red, white, and blue tie, do you know what? You would buy what he was selling. He was that good. He recruited people from every walk of life. He recruited thousands and thousands and thousands of Birchers on the simple principle that federal government is bad for you. And you know what? He sold it so well. He's been dead since 1992, and Americans are still buying that. Look what happened to our president. Let me take a second here. What happened to our president? We elected a moderate Democrat. One of the most moderate Democrats. In fact, when I was a kid, you would have called him an Eisenhower Republican, friends. That's what he is. He's a moderate, kind, compassionate man with a big brain, right? And he's a lawyer. What happened to him? He has now been painted as a communist, socialist, Marxist, African chieftain, Muslim terrorist from Kenya. And how many Americans believe that? You look at his approval ratings and don't you dare tell me less than half. Don't tell me that. Because it's not true. His approval rating today is at the lowest level in his presidency. What happens when the president has an approval rating of 41%? Do you think he can help hold the Senate? Let's get real. Let's get real. We're losing. We're losing for several reasons. Number one, we're losing because we do not believe the radical right is serious. We don't believe him. We say they're crazy. If one more person in this country tells me that the radical right is crazy, I'm going to tear out my hair. People who wouldn't know the radical right, honestly, don't even recognize them, keep saying, Claire, you're an alarmist. You better get alarmed, awake, Tampa. We don't need to get awake. We need to get alarmed.
Absolutely.
Alarmed.
Yes.
Because while we're sitting here thinking we're going to Facebook questions to Rick Scott, we're going to ask him what? What are we going to ask the man? The man should be in jail. What we need to ask ourselves is, why is he the governor, and how likely are we to get him out of there? I hate to tell you, but if the Democrats don't get their as my son used to say, poop in a group, you'll have 4 more years of Scott. Yes, you will, and I will too. I live here. Now, what is it going to take to unseat this guy? What is it going... No, not bullets. And let me make sure that you understand this. I've given, I don't know, 50 talks, maybe 60 now. People say to me all the time, Claire, what we need is a revolution. We need a revolution. You know what I say? You better get out your history books, folks, and read about revolutions.
Amen.
Because I will tell you what revolutions do. Think about Jean-Jacques Rousseau. If you do not know the history of the French Revolution, remember this. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who put to death more Frenchmen, probably than anybody, he said this: when the poor have nothing, they eat the rich. When the poor have nothing, they eat the rich. And what happens then? Out of a bullet comes anarchy. And what does anarchy lead to? Some of you guys are students of history. You're as old as I am, and you know, out of anarchy comes dictatorship. That's what happens. We have one and only one shot at this, and it's not a gun.
Right. Right on.
What we have here is the opportunity to start believing that the right is a real danger, and understanding if we're not working on getting Democrats to comprehend that voting is what you do. Voting is what you do. You vote in every election, friends. Every single election. I don't care if there's only one person on the ballot for, say, we used to call him the dog catcher. You vote every time. That's your responsibility. That's what you do. And you know what? Do you know how many Democrats are enthused? The percentage of Democrats enthused about voting in 2014. Now think about this. The percent of Democrats enthused about voting in 2014 is currently sitting at 26%. Yes, 26%. I see all your mouths hanging open because you people are working your butts off trying to change that. We are not going to change that until we start talking seriously about what's happening here. The radical right has a plan. They are working the plan. Look at the number of people now in the polling who say the number one problem we have in this country. You know what it is? The number one problem, according to the recent Gallup poll, it's not unemployment, it's not poverty, it's not inequality. It is the government. That is what the right has taught us. They started doing it years ago, and they've done it very successfully. You now have millions and millions and millions of Americans who think that the worst thing that can happen is that the government tries to help somebody. Yeah, they do. We have a golden opportunity to stop this. But we are not going to stop it if we can't get Democrats on the same page. We need to be 100% talking about the evil stuff coming out of the mouths of the right. We don't need to be talking about how we're all going to get along. We're not getting along. We can't. We're not getting along. We're getting rid of, not getting along. You know, I always think about something my dad said. My father always said, you have to stall the government out. You have to stop it completely before you can take it apart. That was the mantra of the Birch Society. They were taking back the country 100 years. That's what they were doing. And that's what they're still doing. And we're still thinking over here, we're going to sit down and make a deal. We think we're going to make a deal. I tell you this. I lived 32 years with my dad in the radical right. I couldn't even convince my father that tomorrow the sun would come up. There was no way, because he saw me as a liberal socialist traitor to the country and the family. I couldn't convince my father of a single fact. And you know what I've learned? My dad wasn't any different from the rest of them. You cannot change them. They have a mindset, and we sitting here surely know that, don't we?
Yeah.
Don't we know that? So what do we have to do? We have to do this simple thing. It's an easy thing, but it's the hard thing. This is the hard thing. We have to get every single body to the polls. Every single body. If you are breathing, you need to vote. If you are breathing, you need to vote. And if you think you're going to be sick, you need to get yourself a by-mail ballot. I want to leave you with this last little thought. It's something that I've learned in traveling across the country. We have the biggest hearts and the kindest people in our party. We do. And I love that about Democrats. But we're going to have to do something really hard. We got to do something hard, friends. We have to start fighting. We have to start fighting. We have to start fighting for the poor. We have to start fighting for the middle class. We have to start fighting for the people who work at Walmart and the people who work
Home Depot.
at Home Depot.
Fight for humanity.
We need to start fighting for the people who need help.
We all need help.
And we're only going to do that if we clear out the legislature. So my challenge to you is, let's awake this state. Let's go. Let's get this done. And let's stop thinking you're going to get it done at a peace rally. You're not going to. I always think about P.J. O'Rourke. Do you guys know P.J. O'Rourke? He's a libertarian comic, by the way. I totally disagree with everything about P.J. O'Rourke, but he is funny. P.J. O'Rourke always says this, and I say this to every audience I speak to. P.J. O'Rourke tells the absolute truth about the Republicans. P.J. O'Rourke says this: the Republicans run on the principle that government doesn't work. And then they get elected and prove it. And then when that doesn't work, they say, we just need a few more. We need some more. We need to make sure that every single soul in Florida knows that we get that. Enough with electing people who are in the business of wrecking government. Let's get some real Democrats in office. Thank you very much.